Today I wanted to cover some books available on Kindle Unlimited for authors who are releasing something in March. That way you could pick up something maybe on the backlist even if the book itself isn't going to be in your budget this month. Starting with Canopy Keepers by Veronica G. Hemry. As I'm recording this, Canopy Keepers was available on Amazon First Look for anyone who does Amazon Prime, and I think it's actually going to be available on Kindle Unlimited when it's fully published. But if you're looking for something a little bit shorter or you just can't wait to pick it up, you could always try The Candles Are Burning. This is a short from Amazon Original Series. I just finished reading it, so I'll be talking about it more in my February reading wrap up, and again in its own Into Shadow little segment. But it's a pretty good story. I think it highlights most of what Veronica G. Hemry does well, this historical fantasy element, and I think you can see all of this in a tight 37 pages. She also has Bacchanal available on Kindle Unlimited. I read this last year in February and absolutely loved it. It's got that 1920s carnival traveling circus kind of vibe with a lot of random magic. I love the characters here. I love the magic, the fairy tale, the mythos elements. I just think you're getting a lot of bits together, and she does such a great job combining it and weaving it in a way that's really interesting and scratches all those itches on pretty much everything I'm looking for in that kind of novel. And next is The Quarter Storm along with its sequel, The Foreigner. I haven't read this one, but it is set in New Orleans where we'd be following a voodoo priestess who's attempting to find a murderer that's framing her community for the death of a couple of people. And I love it that there's a serial killer element, there's a religious element, there's probably going to be a magic spiritual element. She's got a detective boyfriend that she's trying to prove herself and her faith to. All of that sounds very compelling and interesting. And part of what interests me about this series versus the Bacchanal is in Bacchanal our main character didn't know about her powers or her magical history and was discovering the rules of that as we go, which is great for readers. If you're unfamiliar with what's going on, you get to learn with the title character. But I love setting it up where we've got a voodoo priestess who's strong, capable, knows her faith, knows the ins and outs of things, is just rolling with it, taking charge, and it's less likely to be taken by surprise or to be experimenting at this phase. The confidence of a character like that and the capability would be so fun to follow. Next is going to be The New Couple in 5B by Lisa Unger. I know Lisa Unger through some Amazon original works, and it turns out she has a couple more that you might want to be aware of. The House of Crows, which is an Amazon original series she did years ago and I happened to read last year. If you read all of them, it makes a cohesive novel and is a great little gothic thriller story. Next is going to be The Sleep Tight Motel, which was one of my favorites in the Darker Corner collection. I love the environment, I loved the characters, I was really invested. This is another story where I knew exactly what was happening, why it was happening, and what the ending was going to be. But I was enjoying my time so much I didn't care that it was so predictable. And I think it speaks to Unger's ability to do character work and to set interesting environments that a reader just wants to keep going with. She also has Let Her Be. This one sounds awesome. I love the idea of a dogged journalist who got it wrong once and is looking to get more proof and information and some kind of redemption in her next story. I'm actually really into this and I'm probably gonna pick it up and read it. And lastly, she has Unknown Caller, which honestly sounds really basic. The crisis worker who has a stalker and then the stalker setting up scenarios the crisis worker has to navigate. I can see why it would be tense and interesting to some people, but it just really doesn't appeal to me personally. Next is going to be Saint Sorrow Sinner by Freydis Moon, and this one is going to be available on Kindle Unlimited when it comes out. Part of a series where I've read book one, Heart Haunt Havoc, last year. I think each one of these adventures is supposed to be a standalone modern goth kind of thing, which maybe now that I've gotten over the fact that I'm not going to get to continue with those same characters, I'm ready to jump into another fun atmospheric read. Besides, this series also has The Three Kings, which is a book described as a polyamorous modern day fairy tale. I kind of love that vibe since I'm really into a why choose story specifically with polyamorous elements, and I love a modern day fairy tale retelling, cannot get enough of them. They also have With Vengeance, which is a demon tempting Kyle who's returning to their hometown of Louisiana to deal with their estranged mother's death. I love estranged parent conflict. I love returning to Louisiana because it makes me think it might be Southern Gothic. Anything with demons in it is usually a fun romp. Next is going to be The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Kiste. I love hauntings. I love tabloid 1 hour documentaries about hauntings or murders or like true crime stuff. Like, I try to avoid it, especially if it goes into like maybe it's a ghost kind of territory if it's a real true crime. But this is fiction. There are quite a few anthologies that Kiste is attached to I could try, starting with October Screams, which is obviously an anthology of spooky Halloween stories. Next is Literally Dead, another Halloween ghost anthology. Next is There Is No Death, There Are No Dead, another spooky anthology. And last is Into the Forest, which is the one I'm most likely to pick up because it's going to give me like those horror in the woods kind of vibes. I like There Is No Death, There Are No Dead probably second best, just because it's got like this existential element to it. But all of these anthologies feel like they would be winners and might open me up to like some more horror readers. And I've really been getting into horror in this past year, and I think I'm looking for more modern takes on horror right now. Next is going to be Crimson Skies by Jaymin Eve. This is book 2 in her Fallen Fae God series, and all of Jaymin Eve's work is available on Kindle Unlimited. You might recognize that name because she is the author of the Shadow Bee Shifter series. I read book 1 in preparation for this book 2 coming out, and actually have a video that's already fully edited and going to release right ahead of this book, which will give you more detail about what I thought of it and all of that fun stuff. But I am anxiously expecting book 2's release. I find her growth as an author to be fascinating, and every single book series she does, she's improving like a whole host of elements in her writing and plot holes. But at the same time, even though there are things that are very the same or similar within each story, there's also like something that's totally different and unique, and all of that's fascinating to me as like a reader in a meta sense. Next is going to be Forgotten Sisters by Cynthia Pelayo. This one is also available from Kindle Unlimited from the start, so we can just enjoy the hype for this release. It's a haunted place with 2 sisters as the lead. One of the sisters is dealing with like the haunting and the unnerving elements by doing a true crime podcast, is reviewing missing persons in the Chicago River that's underneath the haunted apartment. And while she's doing this podcast, she gets a very consistent male caller who's coming in, and things start changing from there. But if you can't wait to jump into that, there are a couple other things Pelayo has on Kindle Unlimited. She's got a collection, Into the Forest, which is a poetry book that she did about real abductions and missing persons. And I think this might have been like an interesting research element that she added into her most recent book. She is also published in 2 separate Gothic Blue book anthologies, which is exciting for me because I love the goth literature, so both of these seem like things that would be on my to-do list. Next is going to be Kill for Me, Kill for You by Cavanaugh. Honestly, my interest in this new release is like mid at best. But Cavanaugh does have one thing on Kindle Unlimited right now called 13 that I love the summary for. The basic premise is our protagonist is in a jury for like a serial killer murder situation, and they are determined to make sure that that person is found guilty because they secretly are the killer for the murders that are being prosecuted at the moment. And that whole premise is very exciting to me. I know it's absurd and larger than life and like how did he get onto the jury pool, but it's also just really exciting and fascinating and like a fun potential cat and mouse setup. And last is going to be Court of Wonders by Rin Chupeco, or Rin Chupeco, or Rin Chupeco. I've just butchered that name like 3 times, and I'm sorry for that. This is book 2 in Silver Under the Nightfall, and I love the bright colors of the cover and the style that's going on here. There is one book that's currently available by this author on Kindle Unlimited, and it's The Bone Witch, which FYI, I love the summary on this one too. The character names is Tia and Fox are just fun. Like, I like silly little names like that. And I also think that necromancy as like a magic power or system is something that has a lot of potential and is underutilized. So that's going to be a list of all the Kindle Unlimited backlist books you can get and authors who are releasing something new this March. I hope this gives you some ideas for your TBR, or maybe places you could start if you wanted to investigate any of these authors further. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, keep reading. Bye!